The United States is now going to be administering a country of 30 million people, Venezuela.
Both sides of the aisle are raising questions about the legality of the operation in Venezuela since it was carried out without congressional authorization. Now, earlier,
the press conference yesterday was a little bit of a right turn where a couple things were said like, hey, we're going to run the country. We're okay with boots on the ground. Those things need to be clarified by the administration, and a clear plan needs to be laid out by the administration on how we're going to move forward.
This is happening. Donald Trump is in total meltdown mode right now, as Congress just pulled off what lawmakers are calling a constitutional checkmate that could completely shut down his Venezuela operation. And this isn't some symbolic gesture or empty threat. This is Congress using the War Powers Resolution to force a vote that could cut off all funding and effectively end Trump's occupation before it turns into another decades-long disaster. After Trump invaded Venezuela, captured President Maduro, bombed the Capitol, and openly declared the United States would be running the country, Congress finally said enough. No debate, no authorization, no constitutional process, just a sudden military attack on a sovereign nation. And now Congress is stepping in to stop it. And here's what makes this absolutely devastating for Trump. He can't claim this is partisan because even some Republicans are backing the resolution. Even members of his own party are looking at what he did and saying, this crosses the line. This violates the Constitution. This creates dangerous precedents. And this needs to stop immediately. Trump ran on no new wars, the peace president, and his supporters believed him, but now he's invaded a country of 30 million people, killed civilians, kidnapped a foreign leader, and announced we're taking over their government. And Congress is forcing him to either back down or openly defy them and trigger an even bigger constitutional crisis. But real quick, before we get into this, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built John Brown Show, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe, because you might think you are, but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. All right, let's get into what actually happened and why this is such a massive deal. Shortly after Trump's original comments about running Venezuela, reports started coming out about what actually went down. U.S. forces launched a wide-scale military operation, bombed targets in Caracas, stormed government buildings with Chinook helicopters, detained President Maduro and the First Lady, transferred them to a U.S. warship, then flew them to New York to face criminal charges in what's essentially a show trial. And Trump confirmed it all, tweeted about it, bragged about it, called it a successful operation, didn't even try to hide what he was doing or why. Just straight up said, we're going in for the oil, we're removing their leader, we're taking control, we're running Venezuela now. Share this video with everyone you know, because think about what that actually means. The United States just invaded another country without congressional approval, without a declaration of war, without any legitimate legal justification under international law. This is the kind of action that would have dominated headlines for months under any other president. But with Trump, it's just another Thursday, another scandal, another constitutional violation, except this time Congress is actually doing something about it. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the people criticizing Trump right now aren't just Democrats. One former Republican member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee came out and said, while I have no sympathy for Maduro or his regime, this is not how the United States conducts itself. This violates international law. This undermines American values, and this creates dangerous precedents that other countries will exploit. And that's the key concern that's driving the congressional response. This isn't really about defending Venezuela's government. Nobody's saying Maduro is a good guy. Nobody's praising his regime. What this is about is whether a president can just decide on his own to invade another country, kidnap their leader, and announce we're taking over. Because if Trump can do that, what stops China from doing the same thing to Taiwan? What stops Russia from pointing to this and saying, see, the United States does it, so we can keep doing it in Ukraine? What stops any powerful country from using military force to remove leaders they don't like and install puppet governments? Trump just gave every authoritarian regime on earth a permission slip, and that's what has lawmakers so alarmed. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown Show, because the constitutional issue here is unavoidable. Under the US Constitution, the power to declare war belongs to Congress, not the president. Congress. That's explicitly stated. It's not ambiguous. It's not a gray area. The founders specifically gave that power to the legislature to prevent presidents from starting wars unilaterally. And Trump just completely ignored that. Launched a military operation, started bombing another country, invaded, occupied, all without asking Congress for permission, without even pretending to follow the constitutional process, just did it. And now he's acting like Congress has no right to question him. But here's the thing that makes this even more damaging for Trump politically. He ran on ending wars. Remember that. No more foreign conflicts, no more regime change, no more nation building. America first. Bring the troops home. That was the entire pitch. And his base ate it up. They love the idea of a president who wouldn't get America stuck in another Iraq or Afghanistan, who would focus on problems at home instead of spending trillions overseas. And now Trump has done the exact opposite. Invaded a country, announced we're occupying it, said we're going to be running their government. No timeline for leaving, no explanation for how this helps Americans. Just pure military aggression for oil. He literally said it's for oil. Didn't even make up an excuse, just admitted we're going in to take their resources. The reactions from Venezuelans themselves show how complicated this situation is. Some people are celebrating Maduro being removed. They hated his regime. They've suffered under his rule. They want him gone. But even those celebrating are also pointing out that the United States has done this before, over and over, in Chile, in Guatemala, in Honduras, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. And every single time it's created chaos, instability, economic collapse, mass displacement, decades of suffering. The CIA goes in, removes a leader they don't like, installs someone friendly to US interests, and the people living there end up worse off than before. That pattern has happened so many times that Venezuelans celebrating Maduro's removal are also terrified about what comes next. Because they know this isn't about helping them. This is about oil companies. This is about control. This is about turning Venezuela into a US vassal state. And here's where the Republican pushback becomes significant. Not all Republicans are defending Trump on this. Some are staying quiet, some are expressing private concerns, and some are openly questioning whether this was legal or smart. And that matters because it creates space for Congress to act. If every Republican was blindly defending Trump no matter what, this war powers resolution would go nowhere. But with even a handful of Republicans willing to break ranks, there's a real possibility Congress can force a vote and cut off funding. And that would be a massive embarrassment for Trump. A sitting president having his own military operation shut down by Congress, including members of his own party. That's not the image of strength Trump wants to project. That's political humiliation. Now let me walk you through what the War Powers Resolution actually does and why it's such a powerful tool here. The resolution was passed in 1973 specifically to limit presidential war powers after Vietnam. It says that if a president commits U.S. forces to military action without congressional authorization, Congress can force a vote on whether to continue that action. And if Congress votes no, the president has to withdraw. The funding gets cut off. The operation ends. That's the law. And Trump doesn't have authorization. He never asked for it, never went to Congress, never got approval, just launched the attack. So now Congress can use the War Powers Resolution to force a vote. And if enough members vote to end the operation, Trump either has to comply or openly defy Congress. And defying Congress would trigger an even bigger constitutional crisis. Make sure you stay subscribed, because Democrats are united on this. All of them want to end the operation. The question is, how many Republicans will join them? If even 5 or 10 Republicans vote with Democrats, the resolution passes, and Trump is backed into a corner. He either withdraws from Venezuela and admits he overreached, or he refuses to withdraw and gets accused of violating the law and acting like a dictator. Neither option is good for him, and that's why lawmakers are calling this a checkmate. Trump made a move he thought would make him look strong, invaded another country, removed their leader, announced American dominance. But now Congress has countered with a move that boxes him in completely. And here's what makes this situation even worse for Trump. The justification he's using doesn't hold up to any scrutiny. He's claiming this is about stopping drug trafficking. about bringing a criminal to justice, about defending American security, but none of that makes sense. Venezuela isn't the main source of drugs coming into the United States. China and Mexico are. The drugs aren't coming from Venezuela, so that excuse is nonsense. And Trump himself just pardoned someone who trafficked 400 tons of cocaine into America. So clearly, he doesn't actually care about drugs. This is about oil. He admitted it. Said, we're going in to take Venezuela's oil. Said American companies will invest billions and extract the resources. That's colonialism. That's resource theft. That's exactly what he's doing. And trying to dress it up as law enforcement or drug policy is insulting. Share this video with everyone you know because the historical parallels are impossible to ignore. Every single time the United States has invaded a Latin American country and tried to control their government, it's ended badly. Guatemala in 1954, Cuba in 1961, Chile in 1973, Nicaragua in the 1980s, Panama in 1989. Every single intervention created long-term instability, economic devastation, mass migration, and resentment toward the United States that lasted for generations. And now Trump is doing it again in Venezuela with no plan, no strategy, no understanding of the consequences, just going in, removing the leader, and announcing we're in charge now. That's not going to bring stability. That's going to create a power vacuum, armed resistance, a humanitarian crisis, and eventually a flood of refugees trying to escape the chaos. Which is ironic because Trump claims he wants to stop migration. But invading neighboring countries and destabilizing their governments is exactly what causes migration. And then there's the cost. Trump constantly complains about spending, says there's no money for healthcare, no money for education, no money for infrastructure, no money for programs that help Americans, but suddenly there's money to invade Venezuela, money to occupy the country, money to run their government, money to station troops there indefinitely. Where's that money coming from? How much is this going to cost? Tens of millions, hundreds of millions, maybe billions if it turns into a long-term occupation like Iraq or Afghanistan. And for what? So oil companies can make profits. So Trump can look tough, while Americans at home still can't afford healthcare or childcare or housing. It's America last disguised as America first. Now here's where the checkmate really comes into play. If Congress passes the War Powers Resolution and votes to end the operation, Trump has three options. Option 1, he complies, withdraws from Venezuela, admits he overreached and violated the Constitution, takes the political hit, but also ends the crisis before it gets worse. Option 2, he defies Congress, refuses to withdraw, claims he has inherent authority as commander-in-chief, triggers a massive constitutional showdown that could lead to impeachment or worse. Option 3, he tries to find some middle ground, scales back the operation but doesn't fully withdraw, claims he's complying while actually continuing in some form, but that just draws out the crisis and keeps him on defense. None of those options are good for Trump. That's the checkmate. He made a move that looked strong in the moment, but now he's trapped. Every path forward damages him politically or legally, or both. And that's exactly what Congress intended. They're not just symbolically opposing Trump. They're using the actual constitutional tools available to stop him. And the War Powers Resolution is one of the most powerful tools Congress has, because it forces a vote, creates a public record, and gives members of Congress the opportunity to either support or oppose military action. Republicans who vote to continue the operation will own it politically, will have to defend it to voters, will be tied to whatever happens next in Venezuela. And Republicans who vote to end it will be publicly breaking with Trump. Either way, Congress wins because they force accountability. We're heading into the 2026 midterms. Trump's approval is already in the low 30s. His legal problems are mounting, his policies are unpopular, and now he's started a war that even some Republicans don't support. Democrats are going to run on this. Show voters that Trump invaded another country, killed civilians, kidnapped a foreign leader, announced we're occupying them, all without congressional approval, all for oil. That's going to be devastating in campaign ads. And Republicans in swing districts know it. They're looking at these polls, looking at Trump's approval, looking at this Venezuela disaster, and calculating whether defending him is worth losing their seats. And more of them are deciding it's not worth it. And here's what happens if Trump loses this vote. If Congress passes the War Powers Resolution and forces him to withdraw, it won't just be a political embarrassment. It'll be a fundamental shift in power, because it'll show that Congress can still check the president, that the constitutional system still works, that even Trump, with all his bluster and defiance, can be forced to follow the law. And that precedent matters, because if Congress can stop Trump on Venezuela, they can stop him on other things too. They can reclaim their authority, reassert their role, push back against executive overreach. And that's terrifying for Trump, because his entire presidency is built on the idea that he can do whatever he wants, that rules don't apply to him, that he's above accountability. But if Congress proves they can stop him, that whole facade crumbles. The bottom line is this: Trump invaded Venezuela without authorization, kidnapped Maduro, announced we're occupying the country, and now Congress is using the War Powers Resolution to shut him down, force a vote, cut off funding, end the operation before it becomes another multi-trillion-dollar disaster. And Trump is trapped, can't back down without looking weak, can't defy Congress without triggering a constitutional crisis, can't claim this is partisan because some Republicans are backing the resolution. The checkmate is real. The vote is coming. And the next few days will determine whether Congress can still check presidential power or whether Trump will defy them and prove he really is above the law. This story continues. Stay tuned. Stay.